Hello, friend. It is so lovely to see you again. Why don't you grab your favorite mug of tea or coffee and step out into the garden with me? It's early morning here. The air is still wonderfully cool, and if you take a deep breath, you can smell that rich, damp earth. It feels like a perfectly wrung-out sponge under our boots. I love this time of day. It's quiet. The world is just waking up, and the foliage is dripping with heavy morning dew. Today, I want to share a peaceful little ritual with you. It's a gentle 10-minute morning habit that will completely transform the way your garden blooms. We are talking about deadheading. Now, I know that sounds like a bit of a chore, but I promise you, it is one of the most rewarding things you can do with your hands. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how this simple, tiny action creates an absolute abundance of visible flowers. By the end of our time together, you'll know exactly how to guide your annuals, your roses, and your big, beautiful dahlias into producing double the blooms. Well, look at the simple science behind it, but more importantly, learn how to listen to what our plants are asking for. To understand why deadheading works, we have to look at what a flower actually is to a plant. When a bloom opens and gets pollinated, it produces a tiny amount of a gas called ethylene. This invisible gas acts like a chemical messenger, telling the plant, "Our work here is done. It's time to make seeds." Once the plant shifts its energy into making seeds, it stops making new flowers entirely. The petals lose their vibrant colour, turning papery and translucent. They drop their heads, and the stem bows slightly under the weight of the swelling centre. When we deadhead, we are simply interrupting that signal. We are stepping in before the seed matures, gently removing that spent bloom. Almost immediately, within just a few days, a plant hormone called auxin redistributes itself down the stem. It wakes up the tiny, sleeping lateral buds lower down on the plant. Instead of that one fading terminal flower, those lower lateral buds swell, branch outward, and suddenly you have two brand new stems racing toward the sun. You are effectively trading one old flower for two fresh ones. Before we make our first cut, let's talk about our tools. I have my favourite high-carbon steel bypass pruners for thicker woody stems and a small pair of micro-tip floral snips for our delicate annuals. We always want to use bypass pruners, never anvil pruners, because anvil blades crush the fragile vascular tissue of the stem. And this is crucial, friend. Always take a moment to wipe your blades with a little 70% isopropyl alcohol. It only takes a second, but it ensures we don't accidentally transfer any fungal spores from one plant to another. Let's walk over to the zinnia patch first. Zinnias are incredibly high-yield annuals, but they absolutely demand this attention. Look at this older bloom here. The petals have shifted from a vibrant crimson to a dusty, bruised magenta. The centre receptacle has grown heavy and greenish-brown. Now look just beneath it. The newer foliage is a glossy, vibrant emerald. If you run your fingers down the stem, it might leave a faint, sticky, resinous sap on your fingertips. It's a very organic, tactile reminder that this plant is full of life and ready to be guided. So, how do we correctly deadhead this zinnia? The trick is the rule of the first node. Trace the stem of the fading flower downward with your fingers. Skip past the first tiny leaves until you find a strong, healthy set of leaves. Right in the junction where those leaves meet the main stem, the axil, you'll see tiny new lateral buds forming. You want to make your cut exactly 1/4 inch above that junction. Snip, just like that. The plant's energy will now immediately rush into those two little side buds. Now, let's step over to the woody perennials. Oh, the smell here is just heavenly, isn't it? The air is heavy with the sharp, spicy, clove-like scent of healthy rose foliage. Roses require a slightly different approach. They have deep, woody taproots and heavy nutrient demands to produce these massive, velvety blooms. When a rose bloom is spent, the petals fall away in a gentle shower, leaving behind a swollen hip. If we leave it, the plant will pour all its energy into that hip. Let's redirect it. For a repeat blooming rose, like a floribunda or hybrid tea, we use the 5-leaflet rule. As you trace the stem down from the dead flower, you'll first notice leaves that only have 3 little leaflets. Skip those. They aren't strong enough to support a heavy new bloom. Keep going down until you find the first leaf that has 5 distinct leaflets on it. Look closely to make sure the little bud in the corner of that leaf is pointing outward, away from the center of the bush. That is your target. Take your freshly sterilized bypass pruners. We're going to make our cut just above that outward-facing bud, but we need to do it at a strict 45-degree angle, slanting away from the bud. Listen for that sharp, resonant snip of the carbon steel slicing seamlessly through the turgid green stem. That angle is so important. When the summer rain comes, the water will hit that angled cut and shed instantly, rolling right off. If we cut it flat, water sits there, which invites fungal rot. Let's meander over to the tuberous beauties of the garden, the dahlias. Dahlias can be a little intimidating for beginners because they are so prolific. Their thick, hollow stems draw energy from massive subterranean tubers. But there is a very common point of confusion with dahlias. Novice gardeners often go in with their snips, but end up accidentally cutting off the brand new buds instead of the spent flowers. It happens to all of us. But I'm going to teach you a foolproof way to tell the difference. We call it the pinch test. When a dahlia flower finishes blooming and drops its petals, the remaining pod closes back up, looking suspiciously like a new bud. But here is the secret. Take the pod gently between your thumb and forefinger and give it a tiny squeeze. A spent, dead dahlia pod is conical, slightly pointed, and feels spongy or hollow inside. A brand new bud, on the other hand, is perfectly spherical, slightly flat on top, and feels dense and hard, like a small green marble. Spongy means snip it. Hard means leave it. While we're talking about dahlias and zinnias, let's clear up a very common myth. I often see gardeners walking by their plants, just casually pulling the dead brown petals off, thinking that counts as deadheading. Sadly, it doesn't. The petals are purely visual attractants for pollinators. The biological factory, the ovary and the receptacle that produces the seed, is at the very base of the flower. Plucking petals leaves the seed-producing organ completely intact. You have to remove the entire receptacle using your snips. Let's talk about the biggest mistake I see beginners make. It's called leaving a snag. A snag happens when you snip a dead flower off right at the base of the bloom, leaving a 2 or 3 inch, headless, bare stem sticking out above the leaves. Because there is no foliage on that little piece of stem to draw water upward, it slowly dies. It turns black, shrivels, and acts as a direct highway for disease, like botrytis rot, to travel down into your otherwise healthy plant. Always cut back to a leaf node. Another thing to keep in mind is timing. Deadheading is technically a form of pruning, and pruning creates an open wound on the plant. If you do this during a midday heat wave, when the temperature is over 90 degrees, the plant is going to suffer from transpiration scorch. The fresh wound rapidly loses moisture, and the edges of the nearest leaves will turn crispy and brown. This is exactly why we make deadheading our early morning, coffee-in-hand ritual. The garden is cool, and the plants have time to heal before the sun gets intense. And please, don't be too hard on yourself if things aren't perfect. Maybe you accidentally snip off a new bud. It's okay. The plant will recover. Or perhaps you'll notice aphids clustering on the new, tender shoots triggered by your deadheading. Pests love that fresh, sweet sap. Just gently spray them off with a hose or wipe them away with your fingers. Garden failures, pests, and a little bit of wilt are completely normal parts of the journey. They don't mean you're doing a bad job. They just mean you're gardening in the real world. We are asking our plants to do a lot of heavy lifting. Because our deadheading triggers a sudden burst of new cellular growth, we need to support the plant. In the 48 hours after a big deadheading session, make sure you water the plant deeply, down to a depth of about 6 inches. If you can, apply a gentle, water-soluble fertilizer that is high in phosphorus and potassium, but low in nitrogen. Nitrogen gives you lots of green leaves, but phosphorus is the fuel that builds those beautiful, structural new flowers. Within a week or two, you are going to see the incredible rewards of your 10-minute habit. Your plants will push out tightly furled new buds wrapped in crisp, pointed green sepals. Soon, they'll burst open into intensely saturated, bright new petals. The stems will be rigid and proud, swaying elastically in the gentle summer breeze. And you'll know that you helped guide that energy. You partnered with the plant to create that beautiful second flush of colour. But my absolute favourite reward? It's the sound. A newly opened bloom hums and vibrates with the presence of native bumblebees. Have you ever watched them work? Their rapid wing beats cause the flower's anthers to release tiny, microscopic clouds of golden pollen. It's a magic little process called buzz pollination. Standing there, smelling the earth, watching the bees dance from flower to flower, it makes every single snip so profoundly worth it. It's a moment of pure, vibrant life in the garden. Thank you so much for joining me in the garden today, friend. I hope you found some peace here, and I hope you feel confident to grab your snips and spend 10 gentle minutes with your own plants. I would love to know, what is blooming in your garden right now? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed our time together, I invite you to subscribe so we can share more cozy garden chats. Until next time, take care of yourselves and happy growing.